On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, after a big win at home against the Atlanta Hawks, well, they're back on the road for three, beginning with the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight, another Eastern Conference opponent that are right above the 76ers, and the Philadelphia is looking to catch in the standings. We'll break it all down as we preview the game tonight, right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Sweat Block. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try Sweat Block. Save 20% with promo code Locked On at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. Welcome. I'm Devon Gibbons from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia. And I'm alongside my co-host and partner here for Locked On 76ers, Keith Pompey of the Enquirer.com, Sixers beat writer extraordinaire. What's up, Keith?
What's good, D? How you been, brother?
I've been all good, man. Good win on Monday. So now we get a chance to see them begin yet again after coming off of a three-game trip. A quick stop back at home for the one win, a three-point victory over Atlanta. And now we get to start off another three-game trip. Two really tough games. With this one tonight against Cleveland and then Friday in Memphis. And we can't overlook Houston next Monday to wrap up the three-game road trip before they begin their seven-game homestand. But before we get started, we thank everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. And always remember that our podcast is free and available on all platforms, including right here on YouTube at Locked On 76ers. Well, Keith, a three-game road trip is where we begin. Right now, the Sixers are 3 games over 500, 12-9, sitting in the fifth spot in the Eastern Conference standings right now after their 21 games. Indiana right now in front of them at 12-8, and the Cleveland Cavaliers in front of both of them at 13-8. So they have a one-game lead on the Sixers, half-game lead on the Indiana Pacers, Keith. 3-game road trip. Sixers coming home, man. You felt like I'm sure they really wanted to kind of settle down, settle in. They got the little tease of staying in their own houses, their own beds, and getting that rest and that home cooking, if you will. And now right back on the road. But at least they do this one, Keith, with Joel Embiid, Matisse Thybulle back in the rotation.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And also, it's also one of those things where, right now we look at the Sixers, they're 5-4 away from home. They're 7-5 at home. But early on in the season, they had a better, road record than they had at home. So I think like they kind of like this. I mean, this is something that where coaches, you get away from some of the distractions that you may have with, guys with their families, their kids, their significant others, whereas you can just focus on basketball, get in some practices time, while you're on the road and basically just ball out. So I think that, this one is also a pretty good test for them, opening up with Cleveland and then Memphis. So, it's one of those things where, they can look and they can see what they have, but also they don't have to worry about a lot of the quote unquote distractions either.
What is it about them over the course of these years that you've been traveling with them on these road games where they have been really successful with these road trips and being focused on the road and having, finishing the season like 10 games over 500 away from Philadelphia? What is it about this team that you've seen, Keith, over the years that allows them to go and have that type of success?
I think there's a little bit of what we alluded to earlier. It's kind of like, when they get on the road, it's kind of like less distractions. They get to do more team bonding, team building, and also, a little bit more of that circle the wagons type stuff. I mean, I think that, when you think about it, let's just say at home, They'll have a practice, or they'll have like a morning shoot around. And then afterwards, everybody goes their own different direction, right? Do whatever they do, go home or wherever they may go during game day. But when you're here, you go back to the hotel. Guys are like hanging out, playing cards together, going out and getting something to eat. And I think that, right now with the team, especially with the blend of the veterans in their 30s and the young guys, it's like they're getting to know each other more. And I think that translates a little bit, on the floor as well. That, it's kind of like, I have my brother's back, so to speak. So I think it's as cheesy as that may sound, but I think it really does matter. But when you're at home, it's kind of sort of, all right, we'll have a shoot around, but I'm going to my house, he's going to his house, or I'm going here and he's going there. It's just, it's different.
Well, look, they just had, the 3 games that they played, losing the first one to Charlotte, close game, but losing to Charlotte, and then taking those 2 against Orlando. So it's not as if they aren't prepared for it, knowing where they just came from and already having the trip where they had to do that. Now you have some better opponents when we talk about Cleveland tonight, Memphis on Friday, and then wrapping it up, the getaway game against Houston, where we can sit here and say Houston, it's just the Houston Rockets. But when you're looking ahead and you're looking to get back home, knowing you're going to be home for a couple of weeks, Keith, right? When they come home next week on, what's that? After the game, that would be the 5th. They're not going back on the road until, or at least having to get on the airplane until after the Christmas Day game against the New York Knicks on the 25th. So they're going to be home for, or at least not on the plane, will definitely be home for about a good 18 days before they have to get back on an airplane or even a bus or a train and go where they need to go. So that is something that, again, they'll worry about at that time. But right now, they are accustomed to being on the road, having played 9 games, to your point, already, and just wrapping up a 3-gamer last week against Charlotte and Orlando. So we'll see what they do. And we need to talk about tonight's opponent, and we'll get into Houston also, but we need to talk about Cleveland and where they are. We already pointed out their record, but they do have some injuries to their starting lineup that will be something that could impact the game. We'll to talk about that next, right here. Sixers in Cleveland later on tonight, right here at Locked On 76ers. But I do want to also talk to you all about Sweatblock and talk to you about them at the very top with the presenting sponsor and what you and your family members can do. And as I've shared over the course of these last couple of weeks, as we've talked about Sweatblock, I don't necessarily suffer from it, but I do have people in my life that does. And I've seen it over the course of the years where it's been a problem, mentioning how they've had to walk around with an extra washcloth or a towel to keep themselves dry when we are in the heat and humidity, and it's a problem. Or even playing sports where I may sweat, but not as much as the next person, and it can become a little bit of an embarrassing thing, dealing with embarrassing sweat. And it's not an easy thing to do. It really isn't. So here's how we kind of came together and tried to fix the problem, and that is with Sweatblock. And they give you confidence to wear what you want, whether it's the certain amount of a piece of article of clothing that you have that causes you to sweat. Well, this helps you out a little bit with dealing with the Sweatblock and their wipes. They were featured and tested on the Rachel Ray Show by firefighters. We have already had them and experienced them by dealing with Sweatblock and having to be able to test these out. The firefighters did it. We did it again with my family, and it's really good. So if you can, and if you feel like you or your family member needs it, just go ahead. Dealing with that embarrassing sweat or odor is not the way to go. Get involved with Sweatblock. Save 20% with promo code Locked On at sweatblock.com. Get the wipes, have them change your life, and hopefully it does for the better. They're also available on Amazon. Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen today. For your second, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back. Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Devon Givens. All right, Keith, in that third spot behind Boston and Milwaukee, the Cleveland Cavaliers sport a 13-8 record. They are 5-5 in their last 10 games. They are without their all-star center, Jared Allen. He missed their last game against the Toronto Raptors, falling 100-88. But Evan Mobley, the standout rookie from a year ago, tremendous second-year player for them, is good enough to hold things down in the middle. The only issue, as talented as he is defensively and offense as a two-way player, he gives up a lot in terms of weight. And as we know, Joel Embiid is a physical specimen. He's a lot to deal with on that low block. I expect a lot of double teams, as usual, with teams when putting together their defensive game plan to come at Joel Embiid. They have also added in the offseason Donovan Mitchell, who we saw in the preseason, but have yet to see him in a Cleveland uniform during a meaningful game. Darius Garland is back after his injury. They have some depth on this team, Keith. This is going to be a tough one tonight as the Sixers look for their fourth win in a row.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's going to be a tough one, but but it's also a winnable one, right? Like you said, the one thing is with Jared Allen not playing, and another guy who's not playing is Kevin Love. A guy who provides depth for him. He knocks down threes. He does a lot of things for him, and he's also a leader of this team. I mean, I'm looking at this starting lineup, and you have it like, you have Mobley. He's a 7-footer, but he's 215 pounds, right? And then you have, he's averaging, 15 points and, he's averaging, 15 points and 9 rebounds. And then you have Dean Wade, as your power forward, 6'9", 219, and Isaac Okoro as the 3, who's 6'6", 225. So I think that, this team is probably going to be of the, probably like the most stiffest test that they're going to have over the last 5 games or whatever, right? But the one thing that gets me is that this team is really streaky. Like they lost, 2 of their last 3 games, talking about Cleveland. And then before that, they had a 4-game winning streak. Before that, they had a 5-game losing streak.
Yeah.
And before that, they opened the season with they had 7 straight wins before losing the season opener. So this team is very streaky and hard to put a reason behind their wins and their losses. Their success.
Well, and look, Darius Garland missed a couple early. Mobley missed a few, or a little banged up, I'll say. Getting Donovan Mitchell in there, implementing things with him and talking about chemistry and camaraderie and all of that. But they are a good team. They're a well-coached team. We saw how they burst on the scene last season, getting to the playoffs, and we thought they were going to be a top 6 seed until they kind of, gave up a lot of that towards the end of the season as they dealt with a lot of injuries and all, where Allen missed a lot of time because I think he had a broken thumb or something along those lines for Cleveland. But they're a good team. They're talented. They're young. But when you speak about Mobley, at least for this game tonight against Joel Embiid, that's a lot to deal with when you're giving up so much, 50, 60 pounds in weight. Now, he's a quick jumper. He's a quick leaper. He's faster on his feet, so he can make things a little difficult for Embiid. And defensively, when he gets out there on the perimeter like Embiid likes to do, Mobley is very good at timing blocks. Now, let's see what he does with the rip through or even the ball fake that Embiid likes to give those big men out there with him on the perimeter and knocking down as he backs them up off the dribble for that pull-up jump shot that he loves from the free throw line extended. We'll see how Mobley reacts to that. And we've seen some of these other key athletic, quick jumping centers give Embiid problems from time to time, like Onyeka Okongwu from Atlanta. Remember his first year in the playoff series? He gave Embiid, some problems there with that quick second jump to get to that extra that extra jump to get to the offensive rebound and give them that second chance opportunity. We've seen it before where those types of players, Nick Richards with the Charlotte Hornets, also one that comes to mind for me, and knowing how we've seen those players also with Chris Boucher and Bol now, and also Mo Bamba. So I really I'm intrigued about that matchup. And then the other one obviously is, how is this backcourt going to defend that dynamic backcourt? That's where I'm curious with Milton and Melton versus Garland and Mitchell, the two All-Stars.
Yeah, that's going to be the big thing right there. How can they defend them? I mean, the Sixers have been playing well. The guards been playing better than expected. But, this is, it was one of those things where we talked about it. All of a sudden it's like they're going to start getting, more stiffer competition. And we'll really see, what they can do, like what Shape can do and things like that.
Yeah. Now, look, those guys have to defend on the other end also, and they're not known for it. So they should be able to have a little bit of success on the other end as well. Well, listen, man, this should be a good one tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing these two teams match up, because I don't think this is going to be the last time that we're talking about meaningful basketball games when these two face off. On the other side, we'll wrap things up and talk about the road trip and continuing with Memphis. We know that they don't play them until Friday, but just kind of looking at this trip in its entirety and what it means for this basketball team right now. We'll do that next right here on Locked On 76ers.
Right now I want to talk to you all about Express VPN, right? So some of you guys may want to say, what the heck is ExpressVPN? So we all know how ExpressVPN protects your privacy and security online, right? But here's something you might not know. You can also use ExpressVPN to unlock movies and shows that are only available in our country. Maybe you're run out of stuff to watch on Netflix. This will change your world. ExpressVPN allows you to binge The Office on UK Netflix, right? It's so simple to do. Just sign up to Netflix, fire up the ExpressVPN app, and change my location to the UK. Refresh Netflix, and that's it, right? That's all you got to do. So if you want to get access to hundreds of new shows, go to expressvpn.com/lockedon right now, and you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. That's expressvpn.com/lockedon. expressvpn.com/lockedon to learn more. Do it today, people. Definitely do it today.
The Office is a funny show, so go do it, people. Go do it. It's a hilarious show. All right, the Memphis Grizzlies, Keith, led by Ja Morant, the All-Star, 12-8. Tonight they take on the Minnesota Timberwolves, who got some bad news with Karl Anthony Towns now out with a calf strain. He's going to be out indefinitely, missing some time for them. So Memphis, 12-8, also 5-5 in their last 10. And Keith, just looking at them, I've seen them a couple of times already, just watching late night basketball since we're up late. And they're still that type of team. Taylor Jenkins has that team ready to roll. Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, who before his injury was playing at a very, very high level. But they're so deep with that team, man, that they just present such a big type of challenge for any team, and especially when we talk about the Sixers. DeAnthony Melton knows them very well, so that will be a good matchup to see him defending Ja Morant, but also with Shake Milton once again as we talk about them. And then in both of these games, Keith, Matisse Thybulle is going to be key because of the wing talent that is there from Mitchell and Garland to now going to Memphis, where you have Morant and then Tyus Jones along with Dylan Brooks, of how they slow down penetration and not allowing these guys to get into the painted area.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. But when I look at this team and I look at matchups, right? I look at a guy like Steven Adams is kind of like the 76ers version of PJ Tucker. And what I mean by that is, offensively, you're not looking for him to do much, but what he does is he does a lot of the intangibles. He provides a lot of the intangibles that you need to win. And also, he's a guy that Joel Embiid has kind of struggled against in the past, right? So, then you have Jaren Jackson Jr., a power forward. He could be a pretty tough matchup. I mean, last
Yeah,
time,
how is he going to match up against he and Tobias Harris? That's going to be an interesting one.
yeah, and the thing is, it's one of those things where, he's also 6'11", 242. And he's one of those guys that, he's bigger and stronger than Tobias. You know what I mean? So that's going to be a matchup. But my thing is, I wonder if you say, okay, I want uh, PJ Tucker to cover him, but then at the same time, who's going to guard Dylan Brooks? Because he's a guy who's had success against the Sixers. 6'6", 220.
I would put
He's
Tucker
averaging 23. Huh?
I would put Tucker on him.
Yeah, you would put him on him, but the thing is, Tucker has had a tough time guarding these type of scoring wings. You know what I mean? Now, again, the other guys were all stars, but so yeah, you think you would put Tucker on him, but can Tobias guard Jaren Jackson too? That's the question. So I don't know. It just seems like matchup. And I didn't even talk about Ja Morant. I didn't even talk about him at all.
Well,
So
that assignment goes right to D'Anthony Melton, and then as
Yeah.
we said, Matisse Thybulle will come on in.
Yeah, but and that's just the tough part. But it should be. It's going to be in there. This is a test that the Sixers wanted, right? They want to see where they are.
This is a good test. I mean, they dropped a couple of games early that they probably shouldn't have. So now it's about making up these types of games. You did so against Orlando. You take the one against Atlanta, and now these two with Cleveland and Minnesota and Memphis. Pardon me. These are two that you said are really good tests. Two playoff teams that we're looking at square in the face and see where you match up against them. See where you fit in the conversation with them and others that are in the same type of category that you're all in. So some really good tests. This is going to be a good week of basketball for them. They started off right by defending their home court against another playoff team, the Atlanta Hawks. And now we'll see how they do against these two, starting with Cleveland tonight. Keith, thanks, man. As always, appreciate it. We got to thank everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast for the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Do you mind letting the good folks know, Keith, where they can, in fact, find us going forward?
Like D said, wherever you can get your podcast for the other podcasts, you can get our podcast too, Locked On 76ers. And then, you can also, when you get to that Liberty, when you get to the YouTube channel, make sure you click on the Liberty Bell to become a subscriber. So what you need to do is also make sure you listen to the Divine Giving Show pre-game tonight, before tonight's game, right? So he'll be on there. And on 97.5, 97.5 the Fanatic. And then also he'll be on there afterwards. And how long will you be on until afterwards, D?
7 o'clock start, probably 2 hours.
Okay. So make sure you listen to him then. You can also follow my man D on Twitter at the Devon G975. You can follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. And you can read my articles in the Philadelphia Inquirer, inquirer.com.
Absolutely. And when we come back tomorrow, we'll be recapping the game, talking about the good and the bad of the 76ers Cleveland Cavaliers matchup. Maybe we're talking about a 4-game winning streak after tonight. Cleveland is always a tough place to play. for them. And now they have even more talent with Donovan Mitchell. Keith, as always, man, thanks. Can't wait to talk to you tomorrow after the game. Look forward to it. Enjoy the game tonight, man.
All right, bro. All right. And have a great show tonight. We're looking forward to talking to you after the game too, bro.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Peace.